All right, let's talk about something really important. When a student's behavior becomes a danger, what can a school actually do? Today, we're going to break down the Nebo School District's official policy on seclusion and restraint. Our goal? To really understand how they handle a crisis while keeping student safety front and center.
It's a question that can give any parent a ton of anxiety. What does happen in that critical moment? Well, the good news here is that the Nebo School District has a really detailed policy that lays out the answer, step by step. The whole idea is so there are no surprises.
And this right here, this quote is basically the North Star for the entire policy. Every single action, every procedure, it all comes back to this one core principle, placing safety and this is just as important, the dignity of every single student first and foremost.
So, the first thing you need to know is that they don't just jump to the most extreme measures. Absolutely not. The policy is crystal clear. Staff has to start with what's called the least restrictive intervention. Think of it like starting with the smallest tool in the toolbox first. We're talking about things like a simple verbal cue or maybe a gentle escort to help a student find a calmer, safer space.
Okay, but what happens when those milder methods just aren't enough to handle an immediate danger, right? The policy has a very specific toolkit for exactly that situation. It's called an Emergency Safety Intervention, or ESI for short. So let's get a really clear definition of what that means.
Now, this is probably the most important thing to get straight. An ESI is not a disciplinary tool. I'm going to say that again. It's not a punishment for misbehaving. It is a crisis response, plain and simple. It's reserved only for those really intense moments when there's an immediate, real risk of serious physical harm.
And the policy draws a very, very clear line in the sand here. In an emergency, things like seclusion and physical restraint are permitted. But, and this is a big but, with super strict rules. On the flip side, things like corporal punishment, prone or face-down restraint, or any kind of chemical restraint, absolutely forbidden, strictly prohibited. There's zero gray area on this.
All right, so let's break down those permitted interventions one by one. First up, we're going to look at the rules for seclusion, which the policy you'll see treats with extreme care.
The definition here is super precise, and for good reason. It's all about a monitored separation for de-escalation. And you gotta pay close attention to this next part. The door must remain unlocked. This is not, I repeat, not about locking a child in a room. It's all about creating a safe, supervised space where they can calm down. So as you can imagine, the bar for using seclusion is set really, really high. It can only be used for students in first grade or higher, and only after all the less restrictive methods have failed to work. And even then, it's only an option when a student poses an immediate threat. On top of all that, a staff member who the student actually knows has to be supervising the whole time. So yeah, this is not some simple choice. It's a very strict checklist that has to be followed to the letter.
And this slide really makes the intent perfectly clear, right? Seclusion is there for one reason and one reason only, to prevent serious physical harm. It can never be used as a disciplinary tool or just because it's convenient for the staff or to try and coerce or humiliate a student. This is what ensures it stays what it's supposed to be, a safety measure, period, not a punishment.
Plus, this isn't an open-ended thing. Seclusion is strictly time-limited. 30 minutes, that's the absolute max. But honestly, it often ends way sooner than that, because the rule is the intervention must end the very moment the danger has passed, or if the student shows any signs of severe distress. The goal is always to get back to a safe state as quickly as humanly possible.
Okay, so next up, let's talk about physical restraint. And as you'll see, the guidelines here are just as strict and just as laser-focused on immediate safety.
So when is physical restraint even allowed? Well, only in a handful of very specific, very serious situations. We're talking about for self-defense, or to get a weapon away from a student, or to protect someone from getting physically hurt. So just like seclusion, you can see the pattern here. It's a response to immediate danger, and it is never, ever a form of discipline.
And here we go again with that same core principle. The goal is always de-escalation. The restraint has to be for the absolute minimum time necessary, and it has to stop the second it's safe to do so. It's all about ending the crisis, right? Not making it last any longer than it has to.
So what happens after one of these emergency interventions is used? This next part of the policy is super important, especially for parents, because it's all about communication and transparency. The policy requires incredibly fast and direct communication. The school must notify a parent as soon as they possibly can, but no later than 15 minutes after the intervention is over. I mean, that's a really tight and clear timeline, and it's designed specifically to keep parents in the loop right away.
So here's how that whole communication process actually works. Step 1 is that immediate notification we just talked about, which goes to the parent and the school administration. Then, for Step 2, within 48 hours, the school has to let the parent know they have a right to ask for all the paperwork. And if you, as the parent, ask for it, the school is required to give you everything, a full description of what happened, the whole 9 yards.
You can really think of this as your parent's Bill of Rights for this kind of situation. You have the right to be notified immediately. You have the right to be told that documentation exists. And you have the right to get a complete copy of all the notes from that incident. Knowing these rights is absolutely key for any parent.
So, when you look at the whole picture, a policy like this isn't just a set of dry rules, is it? It's more like a promise. It's a framework that's designed to build trust by making sure that even in the middle of a crisis, the shared goal for both the school and the family always stays the same, creating a safe and dignified learning environment for every single student.